right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, July 24th, 2015, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Friday, everybody. We made it. It is 51 degrees and very sunny here in upstate New York. All right, so where did we leave off in this week-long exploration of dystopia? Yesterday, we took a look at car hacking, cracking, nobody being safe on the internet with DARPA Dan. We are seeing the strings pull closed with the surveillance state, able to control and manipulate everything we see, everything we do, down to a cellular level. Well, today I want to continue on this, and I would like to take a look at something that is coming down the pipe very quickly called the Dark Act. We've talked about GMO many times before and some of the things that they are doing at a DNA level to our food. We've talked about labeling. We've talked about the lack of labeling. And back, probably a month or two ago, they had just voted to remove the country of origin labels on beef because of a lawsuit from Mexico and Canada through the World Trade Organization against the United States. So, of course, Congress knee-jerk reacted to all that and decided, well, the country of origin labeling laws weren't working anyway. They didn't really make that much of a difference, and so they decided to remove them. Well, now, this Monsanto Protection Act on steroids, quote-unquote, they're calling it, or the Dark Act, is underway, and it is passing pretty quickly through the House. Here, let's hear a clip on this.
National standards for labeling laws related to genetically modified organisms is set for approval by the House of Representatives. Now, the measure, if passed, would ban not only mandatory labeling of GMOs, but also prevent local governments from banning GMO crops and labeling.
So banning mandatory labeling, so what does that mean? That means that Monsanto gave bazillions of dollars to a lobbyist to go up in front of the House and say, no, no, no. Remember, we don't want our stuff labeled because why? Because no one will want to buy it. That was exactly the same logic used for removing the country of labeling law because, hey, you know what? Maybe somebody doesn't want to buy Mexican beef. They want U.S. beef. Well, here we go.
Now, essentially, it aims to override laws passed at the state level, preventing states from passing labeling requirement legislation. It would limit the Food and Drug Administration from ever creating a mandatory labeling law, and GMO companies would only have to voluntarily disclose genetically modified organisms, foods, or ingredients in products labeled as natural foods.
Wait a minute. Voluntary labeling? Yeah, that's worked out so well up until now. And the FDA is not on our side. Remember, we took a look at a lot of different crazy stuff over the last, 6 months or so about how the FDA and the other agencies keeping our food supply safe are keeping us safe. I don't know, use the nose test to sniff our seafood or sniff food coming in to some of the ports in California to decide whether or not it's safe. And remember, we don't have enough safety agents to be able to inspect the food. So what are we going to do? We're going to leave it to the country of origin to decide whether or not our food is safe and to do their own inspections. So how crazy is that? All right, so here we go.
Detractors call this the mother of all Monsanto Protection Acts. Vermont is just one state which has passed laws to require labeling, and this would create the federal law, so it can cast that aside.
So any laws that have been passed, I think it was like Vermont, Maine, and maybe New Hampshire, they were all New England states that had passed mandatory GMO labeling laws. Those laws would be tossed away, and the federal law that makes it voluntary would take its place.
Forget celebrity endorsements, which often go hand in hand with political efforts. Neil Young has pledged $100,000 for Vermont's lawsuit to label GMOs as GMOs. He says, quote, "I'm just a rock and roller who believes people should know what they're eating." The House is expected to vote on H.R. 1599 later this month. In Los Angeles, Lindsay France, RT.
HR 1599, so pay attention to that. 5 things to know about the DARK Act, the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act of 2015. Wow, isn't that an oxymoron? Is moving through the House of Representatives, and it would have major implications on GMO labeling and crop production. There are 2 names for HR 1599, the controversial Republican-backed bill concerning GMO labeling that is currently moving through the House of Representatives. The first is its bland official name. Oh yes, the Safe and Accurate Food Act, Labeling Act of 2015. I mean, since when has voluntary ever been accurate? It's kind of like finding out you have lead or antifreeze in your children's toys or toothpaste, right? And don't forget also, and we're going to look at this, is the FDA allowing China to process our chickens. We looked at that a month or so ago, and that was passed back in November, and it is a go. So any manufacturer who wants to ship their chickens over to China, have them rendered, cut up, put into food, and then sent back here, wink, have been more than able to do that, and they don't have to tell you where it came from. Anyway, back to this. The second is a nickname of this act that has been given by its opponents, Deny Americans the Right to Know DARK Act. Together they revealed the 2 sides in the frequently bitter fight about the safety of genetically modified foods. You know, they haven't done any type of full testing. We have done so many shows on Dr. Huber and his research and findings, his cautions of what he's found where glyphosate kills beneficial bacteria. It is an antimicrobial. It kills your gut bacteria. It passes through the placenta in animals to the unborn offspring. It kills the beneficial bacteria in the soil. He thinks that it also is exactly what is happening to the bees with the colony collapse disorder. There's improper uptake of nutrients, and he's blaming it all on the glyphosate. We have also found in some of our research that glyphosate suppresses the cytochrome P450 enzyme in humans, which, if you do a little bit of research, you're going to find out with the suppression of a cytochrome P450 enzyme, it causes a spate of Western diseases that are afflicting the majority of Americans right now. So, you know what? Hey, let's not label this shit when it gets put in our food, because you don't need to know. Says, all right, back to the story. Critics of GMO have a long list of concerns, and of course, yes, we're just tinfoil hat wearing crazies. Take Monsanto's notorious Roundup Ready seeds. They have been bred to resist an herbicide recently deemed, quote, a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization. And yes, we did watch a clip also where they had a scientist from Monsanto on that morning coffee clutch TV show, The Doctors, but they really handed her lunch. They had, I don't remember his name. Jeffrey, I don't remember your last name. From the Institute of Responsible Technology was debating this Monsanto scientist, and he handed her lunch. Absolutely, because she did not have any argument for all of this research that is building that shows how dangerous GMOs are, and there is a very, very, very small amount of research that is being made public by them that shows that this stuff is safe. I mean, everything that shows it's safe is bought and paid for. And remember, we also found out that the FDA is letting all kinds of peer-reviewed studies get published in scientific journals. And once something is found to be incorrect or a faulty study, it isn't being retracted. It's being left out there. So you cannot trust anything that is financed by these bastards. Okay, so anyway, it's deemed a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, so of course Monsanto has to double down and make sure they get this rammed through fast, especially now that people are onto them. Critics also worry about genetic contamination and lack of research into long-term health effects of the crops. And no, the long-term research is your child that's consuming all this stuff in all of their foods. Remember, too, when we looked looked at the whole dopamine connection and the addiction of that dangling dopamine carrot, we have things such as high fructose corn syrup that's in just about everything we ingest. And what is it made with? Oh, genetically modified corn, since 90% of all the corn produced in the United States is genetically modified. Meanwhile, GMO supporters argue that the world is facing, a global hunger crisis. There's too many people, and we're running out of resources. That's the way they always spin it. And, of course, GMOs will save the day. And foods genetically modified to have more nutrients could be potential lifesavers. But H.R. 1599 is not about the existence of GMOs, which are entrenched in American agriculture. GMO crops account for about 90% of the corn, ding-ding, and soy grown in the country. It is about whether the genetically modified foods you buy should be labeled as such. And because independent poll after poll shows the majority of Americans support GMO labeling, the bill's opponents see the bill as nothing more than agrochemical flexing its lobby muscles, and I would definitely agree with that. The bill passed through the House Agriculture Committee last week and will go up for debate on the House floor as early as next week. Many in the industry expect the House to get to it before the August recess, and here is what you need to know about the so-called Dark Act and how it affects GMO labeling and production as a whole. Number one, it would negate all existing GMO labeling laws. So there you go. Despite industry's deep pockets, a law passed in Vermont last year that would require mandatory GMO labeling for all ingredients by 2016. Connecticut and Maine, so it was Connecticut as well as Maine and Vermont. Connecticut and Maine have also both passed bills requiring labeling, but they can only take effect once enough states nearby have similar laws. H.R. 1599 would negate all of these laws and more, according to the Center for Food Safety. Preemption language in the bill would nullify over 100 local laws, 100, that directly or indirectly regulate genetically engineered crops. And there is nothing stopping food companies from doing their own labeling. But as Ken Roseborough, editor and publisher of the Organic and Non-GMO Report, points out, they've had this power since 2001 when the FDA issued guidance on voluntary GMO and non-GMO labeling. How many companies have voluntarily labeled their products as containing GMOs since then? None, he says. And if you remember that California Proposition 37, I believe it was, for the GMO labeling law back a few years ago, one of the things that the corporations came out and said was that, no, we can't label GMOs because it's going to cost too much to make all new labels, and then the poor consumer is going to have to pay way over and above, through the nose, for their food to pay for these new labels. So you know what? It's not conducive, poor consumer, because we don't want to raise prices on you. No, we don't want to raise prices on you, but we're loving the fact that there are droughts and floods everywhere, and oh my God, we have a food shortage. But the only way to save the human race is to what? Genetically modify our food to be able to grow in these new conditions of what? Oh, climate change. Number two, the bill would give jurisdiction over non-GMO certification to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is the USDA, which does not have the same rigor as independent certification programs. And we found out the USDA and the FDA are both just a pair of puppet institutions that really aren't keeping us safe regardless. I mean, if the sniff test is any indication of how safe your Gulf shrimp is, then I don't know about putting my health and safety in the hands of the USDA and the FDA. Number three, there is language in a bill that preempts state and local laws regarding the production of GMO crops, not just labeling. To the opponents of the bill, this is far more sinister than the labeling laws. As a response to concerns about the health and environment effects of GMOs, a few countries in California and Oregon have led grassroots efforts and passed laws that limit genetically engineered crop production or even establish GMO-free zones. You know what's amazing is that the majority of the countries on planet Earth have all banned GMOs, except for where? Oh, the United States. That was when BASF, who's another chemical company who used to be headquartered out of Germany, packed up and moved their headquarters to Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, right where some of the other big boys are because, quote, the United States is much more GMO friendly, unquote. Number 4. And remember, there's a revolving door in the federal government. If you've ever seen those, I don't remember what those charts are called, the circles, the overlapping circles. There is one about GMOs and Monsanto, and it has been a revolving door not only between Monsanto, but Biopharma and all the other institutions. And I want to look at a clip here because we've tied all this together. I mean, if you look at some of the forward-looking statements, the R&D that was going on for 2014 and 2015 in Monsanto, and they put that out in January every year, one of the things that we discovered is a lot of the technology that they're using in some of these new GMO crops is the same technology that they're using in some of these newfangled vaccines. Well, who would have believed it? But yes, this RNAi technology where they can flip switches on and off in your DNA and cause an interference. So they can interfere with the production of certain chemicals or the production of certain enzymes in an organism. Well, they're using the same technology to act as a quote-unquote insecticide. So when the bugs eat the food, it flips certain switches off that, produce maybe some sort of protein, and then the insect dies. Well, here's the question. All this newfangled technology hasn't been tested extensively in any way, shape, or form, and how is that going to affect you as a living organism like the insect after you ingest it? Well, I guess that the healthcare industry and precision medicine will take care of that for you. Number 4, the bill would expand the definition of natural to include some genetically modified ingredients. There is nothing natural about anything synthetic, anything modified. We are not gods. Number 5, even if the bill is introduced in the Senate, it probably won't pass. Well, phew, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one either. And there are bills in both the House and the Senate that are in favor of mandatory labeling. So thank goodness we should all get behind this and start paying attention because people, I don't want Chinese chicken. Genetically modified Chinese chicken with 5 legs. As we all know, a bill needs to pass both the House and the Senate before it becomes law, or, and this is my comment, Obama just gets out his robo-pen and inks something and jams it down everyone's throat without any type of House and Senate approval. The Senate corollary to H.R. 1599 has not been introduced as of press time, though many expect it to appear any day now. But experts say that the odds of finding enough Democratic backing in the Senate are slim, and it would still need to be signed into law by Obama. You know what, though? The question is, how many of these senators and congressmen are invested in this stuff on Wall Street? Because remember, more than 50% of all of Congress are now millionaires, and how do you think they got there? And don't forget this one. There was any doubt that there was any type of collusion going on between different federal agencies and divisions, officials declare eating healthy a mental disorder. Dun, dun, dun. If you remember that one back in February 2015, in an attempt to curb the mass rush for food change and reform, psychiatry has green-lighted a public relations push to spread awareness about their new buzzword, orthorexia nervosa, defined as a, quote, pathological obsession for biologically pure and healthy nutrition. I mean, just how uncanny is that, right as we're getting rid of all these labeling laws and allowing Monsanto to have free reign over our food chain and the FDA to open up the doors to foreign countries doing their own inspection. Yes, there is a mental disorder now if you are concerned about your food safety and your nutrition choices. In other words, back to the story, experts are moving towards saying that our demand for nutrient-dense, healthful food is a mental disorder that must be treated. CNN, Fast Company, Popular Science, and other top outlets have all begun to trumpet the talking points on cue. orthorexia nervosa, quote, is labeled designated to those who are concerned about eating healthy, characterized by disordered eating fueled by a desire for, quote, clean or, quote, healthy foods. Those diagnosed with the condition are overly preoccupied with the nutritional makeup of what they eat, unquote. I mean, come on. So if you worry about your Chinese chicken being rats or your nanotechnology or self-replicating nanobots in your food, RNAi, cytochrome P450 suppressing glyphosate, BT toxin, exploding bug stomachs, I mean, any of this other stuff. Oh, I don't know all the studies now. The World Health Organization determining that glyphosate is a potential cancer cause. But no, don't worry about any of that, because the TPP and the TPIP will come in and it'll be one big, happy, global family. In short, if you turn your back on low-quality corporate food containing known cancer-causing toxic additives and a rich history of dishonesty rooted in a continuous profits over people, there we go, modus operandi, then you may suffer from a mental illness. Yes, so Biofarmer will take care of all that for you. Don't worry, I'm sure that IBM's Watson will be able to find a black box use for some medication that'll help you. The cherry on top is that if you have the pseudoscience label disorder of orthorexia nervosa, you will be prescribed, here we go, known toxic pharmaceutical drugs from some of the same conglomerates, corporations that you are trying to avoid by eating healthy in the first place. As people continue to walk away from the broken medical and agricultural food systems like any abusive relationship, the food makers are willing to do anything to maintain their waning control. Organic and non-GMO food markets have exploded in the last 5 years. Yes, they have. So much so that any corporation wishing to not follow this trend risks financial hardship or ruin. In addition, pharmaceutical companies are feeling the strain as less people want toxic medications, crippling side effects, and what they didn't mention here is, guess what? If you eat healthy food, you're going to be healthier, and so you won't need to go to the doctor to be treated for all of these Western afflictions that this toxic food causes. Alright, so over the last few days, we've looked at hacking, cracking, spying, backdooring, Keith Alexander, the hacking team, and all of these different ways that they are trying to not only capture information from you, but also keep information from you. Remember, we looked at Google's truth algorithm back a few weeks ago, where they're going to have their own quote-unquote truth database and then compare information on your website to what they consider the truth. And if your information is not in that truth database, then guess what? Your website does not get good rankings. Well, check this out. It appears RT is on it, and they jumped on a story. Anthony Gucciardi was trying to post something from his health blog, and Facebook blocked it, and this has happened to me many times.
We're getting closer and closer to not having any clue about what's in our food anymore, especially now that the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act of 2015 just passed the Agriculture Committee and is now heading to the House floor. Because what the bill does is it blocks states from imposing their own laws that would make it mandatory to label food for GMOs. In other words, on a federal, countrywide level, the Safe and Accurate Food Labeling Act outlaws mandatory GMO labeling. Instead, the bill wants to make GMO labeling a voluntary thing. Let's just leave it up to the food makers to decide whether or not they want to label for GMOs. So in other words, we're getting closer to never knowing when we eat GMO food. Now, when Obama was campaigning, he promised to let folks know when their food had been genetically modified. But Congress is feeling pretty confident that the president will sign this bill into law in the fall. And if he does, it will overturn mandatory GMO labeling laws already passed in Vermont, Connecticut, and Maine. So, there's a hot debate going on right now about this, with opponents calling the bill the Denying Americans the Right to Know, or DARK Act. Others are calling it the Monsanto Protection Act on steroids, since the agri-giant has such a vested interest in the bill. So whenever an issue is being debated so heatedly, it's good for people to access information from all sorts of places, both in support of and against, so that they can be best informed. Which is why it makes it so crazy that Facebook has actually blocked thousands of users from posting information against this bill. Prominent health writer Anthony Gucciardi actually took a screenshot of Facebook blocking him from posting a story from naturalsociety.com called "Congress Could Soon Ban GMO Labeling Under New Bill." Facebook clearly told him that the post was blocked by their security systems, but gave no reason.
Now, how interesting is that? So Facebook pops a message, because I've gotten this many times before, saying, your post has been blocked by our security systems. If you believe that this is incorrect, click message here, and with no reasoning whatsoever. It's very interesting, though, because Facebook, I read a story a few months back talking about Facebook wanting to be the portal for all information out there that is available to you. It would be like an old school Prodigy or America Online, where you would actually have to log in to the application, which of course Zuckerberg's sister, when she was the head of marketing, said that there is no place on the internet for anonymity. And believe me, everything that we have looked at here over this last week proves to me that anonymity is more than dead. It is a dead, rotting horse on the hot roadside. But, they'll be getting ready here very shortly to start bringing in biometrics. You'll need to do a thumbprint or an iris scan or a voice print. Windows 10 is already tinkering with that to be able to even access the capability to get online, because, oh my goodness, that pesky internet's been radicalizing our children. And don't forget, with the insecurity and the hackers everywhere and under every bed, with this new Internet of Things, hey, little Johnny might be able to hack your Jeep Cherokee if we didn't have some sort of biometric protection. But once you get into Facebook, then you would be able to go through your news feeds and select what they've selected for you to read based upon your preferences, based upon some sort of artificially intelligent feed that they provide you, and decide is part of the truth algorithm. Guys, the future of all of this is just so insane. Homogenized news propaganda has hopped into the front seat, and now it is riding on the hood of the car, holding onto the hood ornament at 150 miles an hour, coming right at you head on.
Now, I'm not going to try to say GMO labeling is good or bad right now. I'm just going to say that Facebook blocking information from one side of the table is obviously bad. Especially because Facebook is right now trying to own the news. And about 60% of its users actually get their news from Facebook. And they're encouraging news outlets to publish on Facebook instead of their own sites. So Facebook is clearly making a play to control the news right now. But when they block information about GMO labeling and Monsanto, it's got to make you wonder who exactly is controlling Facebook.
Yeah, good question.
Talk about that.
I don't know, lots and lots and lots of stories about Zuckerberg and his shady history. Don't trust anything. All right, so getting back to GMOs and this dark act, there was a documentary is called Seeds of Death, unveiling the lies of GMOs. I just want to play the first couple minutes because it's everything that I've been saying about this for as long as I've been squawking about GMOs. It's got to be close to 3.5 years now.
Genetic engineering is a process where scientists take genes from one species and force it into the DNA of other species.
Every single independent study conducted on the impact of genetically modified food shows that it damages organs, it causes infertility, it causes immune system failure, it causes holes in the GI tract, it causes multiple organ system failure.
The whole concept of genetically modified organisms is throwing a monkey wrench in the life on this planet.
What if we could produce more yield on the same amount of land? Squeeze more water from a single raindrop?
Oh, yes.
Conserve natural resources while caring for the environment.
Yes, while caring for the environment, except we've let the genie out of the bottle. It's spreading everywhere. 90% of our corn and our soybeans in this country are already genetically modified. And to get organic, we looked a few months ago, the only places that we are able to get organic now are from foreign sources.
Monsanto is the company that told us that PCBs were safe. They told us that Agent Orange was safe. They told us that DDT was safe, and now they're in charge of telling us if their own genetically modified foods are safe.
The reason why we have 170 million acres of genetically engineered corn and soybeans and cotton and canola oil and sugar beets in the United States is because it doesn't have to be labeled.
The first genetically modified animal, a salmon, may soon be approved for human consumption.
Both these fish are 18 months old, but the larger genetically engineered Aqua Advantage salmon grows twice as fast as the regular salmon.
There has not been sufficient animal health testing, human health testing, or environmental impact testing of these new transgenic fish.
You know, and we found out, too, about a month ago about the new GMOs that were released in New York State right near organic farms per the approval of Cuomo, Governor Cuomo, and they were by that company Oxitec out of England. Oxitec, the same ones that are working on those genetically modified mosquitoes. And it was a project that we discovered was funded by Bill Gates. Oh, how did we ever guess that one? But they released these without any type of environmental impact. Now, how are any of these alphabet agencies that are supposed to be protecting the environment, the EPA just kind of said, well, go ahead. How are we supposed to trust any of these people when they are just letting this genie out of the bottle upside down and sideways without any type of concern for how this is going to affect our environment in the future or our humanness? I mean, it's really scary when you listen to an interview with someone like Kurzweil or any of these other futuristic transhumanist crazies who are saying that, oh, the merging of man and machine is already underway. You know, it really makes me wonder if this human 2.0 that they've been talking about isn't being done through having us eat these genetically modified organisms. Because, hey, guess what? It's all trade secret. They don't need to tell us what they're doing, and we don't really need to know how it's working inside. All we need to know is that we have food and they're providing it to us. Shut up, be happy, and go get your Obamacare and your precision medicine, and we'll take care of it all.
Basically, they've taken agriculture and built an industrial model which doesn't fit nature. So instead of changing their agricultural model to accommodate what is natural, they're changing nature to accommodate the industrial model. If you have an organic corn crop that sits next to a genetically engineered corn field, and it happens to tassel at the same time, and it happens to be downwind, you're going to get your crop contaminated.
The rest of the food supply contaminated. Then the genie's out of the bottle, and
ding ding, genie's out of the bottle.
It's maybe physically impossible to turn the situation around.
I don't see how it is going to be possible to turn this back around. I mean, this stuff is out, it's in the environment, it's everywhere. How do you get rid of GMO pollen?
In the genetic engineering revolution, these seeds are now patented property of one corporation called Monsanto.
Yes, and that is a really good point. The seeds are patented. We've talked about that before. You know, their genetic modifications, they've been able to patent. There were a bunch of lawsuits where some organic farms got polluted by GMO pollen, and some of their crops were polluted, and then Monsanto came after them and sued them for intellectual property. I had mentioned this yesterday, that as we are marching forward with technology and we're starting to see transistors get teeny tiny to almost the size of a DNA strand, and those eventually end up in our bodies and begin to modify our cells in ways that we can't even imagine right now because we have no idea what this stuff is or what it's doing. Who's to say that at some point in the future they're not going to come to us and tell us that we now are patented organisms?
The pharmaceutical industry has no interest in having you well because they don't make any money if you're well.
Ding ding.
Pharmaceutical industry is the biotech industry.
Ding ding.
People think that GMO really means God move over.
We are heading downhill at a rapid rate of speed toward our own extinction.
The use of GM in agriculture is a risk that is simply not worth taking.
And there you go. I mean, God move over. That is about it. We act as if we are gods, manipulating life on a cellular and a DNA level, and hoping that whatever comes out the other side is going to be bigger and better than it was before. Well, I hate to tell you, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. All right, so let's pop over here for a minute. I wanted to talk about, this lack of labeling, this removing the country of origin labels. All right, on June 11, 2015, House votes to repeal country of origin labeling for meat. So I think it actually is. It's beef, pork, and chicken. Oh, how scary. House of Representatives voted to repeal country of origin labeling for beef, pork, and chicken. Conway, a Texas Republican, sponsored the Country of Origin Labeling Amendment Act of 2015, and it passed. His bill was introduced on May 18th, the same day as the World Trade Organization rejected a U.S. appeal of its decision that the labeling bill unfairly discriminated against meat imports and gave an advantage to domestic meat products. Isn't that the same argument that they're using for GMO? By labeling, you're giving an unfair advantage to organic, because if it was labeled as GMO, no one would buy it. Well, gee, that should mean something. 2 days later, the House Agriculture Committee passed the bill 38-6. It went into effect for meat in 2013, which required that packages indicate the country or countries where animals were born, raised, and slaughtered, and supporters of the repeal did not want the U.S. subjected to the $3.6 billion in potential retaliatory tariffs sought by Canada and Mexico. We talked about that story. Canada and Mexico had gone to the World Trade Organization and said, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, the United States has labeled our meat is coming from our country, and because of that, we are losing services and sales, and we want restitution. The United States said, hell no, we're not paying you $3.6 billion. So guess what? We'll just get rid of the country labeling law that we had in effect, and you can just ship your meat in, and nobody's going to care where it came from anyway, because, hey, guess what? The Monsanto Protection Dark Act is on its way, too, and that'll take care of everything. They said that, the labeling law has not worked, and it is time to put this failed experiment behind us once and for all. You know, I have to say, too, I went into a local grocery store the other day, and right at the top of the meat counter, it did say, all of our meat is from the USA. I was actually pretty excited about that. Somebody is on top of things. Mandatory food labeling is not about food safety, says Dan Benishik, a Republican from Michigan. No matter where our food comes from, regulations remain in place to ensure safety and traceability regardless of origin. Well, of course, I feel so safe knowing that they're sniffing my food and they don't have enough investigators, and that we're leaving it to the origin country to make certain that my food is safe before I consume it. Yeah, I trust every single one of them, especially people in the government from Mexico. June 17th is the next meeting of the World Trade Organization Dispute Settlement Body, where members will consider Canada and Mexico's retaliation list. They stated that it will take some time to figure out what the damage is, and then there will be an arbitration panel to get everyone to agree that that's exactly what it is, and that we need to give them money because their businesses were damaged. You know, while this is all going on, don't forget we have the TPP and the TTIP all being negotiated in secret. And I've seen some pieces that have been on like NPR that or BBC that are, you know, panels of people arguing whether or not the TPP and these trade agreements are good. None of this is good, people. It's going to hide anything and everything that is important to us from our knowledge, and we will just have to shut up and eat it or go hungry. And hey, guess what? Don't worry about it, because the UN has insects on the table for you. That's the way to be carbon sensitive and make sure we all get the protein that we need. All right. So if there ever was evidence to me that any of this is bad, and I gotta tell you, I mean, I'm so picky about my food, but listen to this. Out of Off the Grid News, rat meat sold as chicken in U.S. stores. Well, it could. Do you know where your food comes from? Unless you've raised what goes on your dinner plate yourself. The answer to that question will likely be shocking. The USDA will soon permit chickens raised in America, and we read this as of November of 2014. It's already gotten the green light. The USDA will soon permit chickens raised in America to be sent to China for processing and then be shipped back to the U.S. for human consumption. Even worse, the new relaxed regulations say nothing about allowing USDA inspectors at the Chinese chicken processing plants. Our poultry may now become world travelers with little or no oversight, and this is particularly disturbing considering the poor history of Chinese food safety. Well, yeah, we've talked about that. How about the antifreeze and the kids' toothpaste? Just because it was cheaper. In 2014, a Shanghai company that supplied meat to McDonald's and KFC was accused by a TV station of using out-of-date beef and chicken to make patties and other products. The TV station also recorded employees picking meat that had fallen onto the dirty floor and putting it back on the conveyor belt. We actually saw that video, and it gets way worse. In 2008, and I remember this story as well, more than 300,000 children in the country became ill from contaminated milk powder, according to The Guardian. I think that was baby formula. And in 2012, high levels of mercury were found in baby formula sold in China, the New York Times reported. Also, how about all of the children's toys shipped here loaded with lead? In 2013, it was discovered that more than $1 million worth of rat, fox, and mink was seasoned and sold as lamb to consumers, and Chinese officials arrested more than 900 in that latter scandal. Rat meat can be cut and prepared in such a way that most consumers would believe that it's chicken. Oh my God, rat meat. You know, and here's another thing. When you look then to China, too, I just saw all these videos that Pigmine posted about their dog and cat eating festival they have over there, where they actually steal people's pets, and there's millions of dogs and cats that they barbarically kill and roast at this dog and cat eating festival. I don't want to eat anything that comes out of China, thank you very much. And especially now, if the powers that be are insisting that we don't need to know if our food comes to China, because don't worry about it, they're going to keep our food safe. Well, from one of the most polluted countries in the world, I don't think I'd feel safe about anything, even an Apple Watch, coming from China. Lobbyists from the chicken industry claim that no United States company will ship chicken to China for processing simply because it does not make economic sense. Yeah, well, I'll believe that one when I see it. Think about it. A Chinese company would have to purchase frozen chicken in the United States, pay to ship it 7,000 miles, unload it, transport it to a processing plant, unpack it, repack it, process, cook it, freeze it, transport it back to a port, then ship it another 7,000 miles. I don't know how anyone can make a profit doing that, says the National Chicken Council spokesman Tom Super to the Houston Chronicle. That's a very good point. I questioned that at the very beginning. But hey, do we really know what those little chicken niblets are in our soup? No, we don't. All right, back to the story. The vast majority of items we purchase at the store are made overseas and shipped to the U.S., and a similar process is already being used for seafood caught off the various American coasts. Would it be such a fiscal leap for chicken processing to be outsourced as well? According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, chicken processors in the United States made about $11 an hour, and in China, the same worker only earns $1 to $2 per hour, according to EatLocalGrown.com. Those figures definitely cast some doubt upon comments made by the poultry industry lobbyists. The Seattle Times reported that the Dungus crab and Pacific salmon caught domestically are being shipped to China for processing and then shipped back and placed into grocery stores. So Dungeness crab and Pacific salmon, look out. There are 36 pin bones in a salmon, and the best way to remove them is by hand, says Trident founder Charles Brundant. The company reportedly ships approximately 30 million pounds of its 1.2 billion pound annual harvest to China for processing. Something that would cost us $1 per pound labor here, they get done for 20 cents per pound in China. Well, just like this article says, it is probably a really good time to start raising backyard chickens to ensure that you don't have rat meat in your stew. Oh my God, this is awful. You know, it's very obvious that all of these multinational corporations are all in bed together, butt-patting each other and making certain that their profits are taking over anyone's health and safety because, hey, it doesn't matter. Plausible deniability. At some point in the future, if you get sick from something, it's better to pay you off if you get caught. But most of the time, they never get caught. And this is not only in the food industry, but in biopharma, in healthcare, in any of these different multinational corporations that are supposedly keeping you safe and doing good things for you, the consumer. Getting to some crazy mad science gone mad. So genetic modification goes all the way. We're all to the point now of shipping chickens to China, and I just completely have no clue. So we have these multinational chemical companies, which is what many of them originally were, who are producing our foods. We have our federal government opening up the doors to allow free trade and sending our foods to China, removing country of origin laws, working on getting rid of labeling GMOs and making it voluntary. Nobody is watching the store. It's all for your safety and for economic growth, for helping the environment. Bullshit. They are selling you out lock, stock, and barrel. They're genetically doing testing on you and your children under the guise of vaccinations and saving the food supply. And here we go. The genetic craziness. This tiny beating heart was made from stem cells. They're only 0.5 millimeter in diameter and about 1/3 of the length of a pinhead. But there they are, thumping away, tiny, beating almost hearts. Scientists have grown the miniature organs, of which you can see in this animation below, and you can see it's actually beating. It's really creepy looking, from human stem cells derived from skin tissue, and they are the first human heart chamber ever developed in vitro. Remember, I talked about that the other day. In the past, they used to have fetal tissue, but they no longer have to do that anymore. They literally can create stem cells out of your own skin tissue. These findings could someday help researchers determine how medications affect the hearts of developing fetuses, according to a study published in the journal Nature Communications. And if you remember yesterday, we actually looked at the body on a chip, the living, breathing organs that they are putting together as a full bodily system. It was a project that DARPA had been working on already for quite a number of years. They have that whole living foundry project going on as well for integrating the synthetic with the biological. Put on a seatbelt, people, because it is coming, and I mean, it is to the point of absolute insanity now. The tiny heart is actually a cardiac microchamber, which is basically a functional model of a human ventricle that researchers hope someday will be used to, quote, model aspects of early developing hearts. And, this is all to test drugs and vaccines and see how it affects the human body. But don't forget, there's the entire transhumanist agenda that is going on alongside this, and none of this is going to be for your own benefit. They are trying to become gods. They are trying to master creating life and manipulating it to their benefit. Stem cells were placed in a petri dish to grow, but were coaxed with oxygen plasma so they would turn into cardiac tissue, Popular Science notes. 20 days later, the cells had developed into beating little models of human organ. The research is notable because it would allow scientists to use human-like hearts in medical research rather than, rodent hearts that are currently used, of course, so it's all for the benefit of the animal and the human. We believe it is the first example illustrating the process of developing human heart chamber in vitro, said Kevin Healy, a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and co-author of the study. This technology could help us quickly screen for drugs, yes, likely to generate cardiac birth defects and guide decisions about which drugs are dangerous during pregnancy. Well, great, they won't have to do that testing on humans anymore, but here we are pumping drugs into people. They also have this black box drug testing that they're doing in conjunction with IBM's artificial intelligence, Watson, and precision medicine, which is the full merging of biopharma and technology. So now we have some stem cells that we can create any type of living organ and then, put it on a chip. This is just, I can't even, when I read this, I get so upset over what is happening, and how do you even look toward the future timeline as to where we're going to be in even 5 years when they've told us that a large number of robots and artificial intelligence are going to take the majority of the jobs. So anyway, that was out of the Huffington Post, but wait, there's more. Human trials of manufactured blood to occur within 2 years. Yes, manufactured blood, people. There's the heartbeat. The first human trials of lab-produced blood to help create better matched blood for patients with complex blood conditions has been announced by the NHS Blood and Transplant. So, hey, again, for all you poor people with complex blood conditions, we now have a solution for you. This is lab-produced blood. Research led by scientists at the University of Bristol and NHS Blood and Transplant used stem cells from adult and umbilical cord blood to create a small volume of manufactured red blood cells. It is hoped that when the production of this lab-produced blood is successfully scaled up, it will offer an alternative to specialist patients with blood disorders such as sickle cell anemia and thalassemia, which who even knows, thalassemia, who require treatment with regular transfusions and for whom it is difficult to find compatible donors. So step right up, you will get to be the first new human trial guinea pigs. This will involve a group of 20 volunteers, yes, who will step right up, who will receive a small volume transfusion of between 5 and 10 milliliters of lab-produced blood. Dr. Ashley Toy, the Bristol School of Biochemistry, who worked alongside Professor Dave Anstey from NHS Blood and Transplant Blood on the project, said, quote, "This announcement is an important stage in progressing this pioneering research. There are a small number of patients with complex blood disorders for who the NHSBT sometimes finds it difficult to find a blood match. So yes, we're spending gobs of research dollars to help you, small number of individuals with complex blood disorders, because why? We love you, and this is just for you. Don't be so naive. It isn't just for you. You are the convenient, desperate guinea pig who will be standing there in their moment of need going, I need a blood transfusion. And they go, hey, guess what? We have this newfangled research we're doing, and you're a perfect candidate. Why don't we see if we can make you live forever, let's say, or cure your cancer, or cure your blood disorder with our newfangled, crazy, mad science gone mad synthetic biology. Yes, we can grow organs now on a chip. We can 3D print organs. We can grow little beating hearts. So don't worry, because humans will be disposable and buildable at will. The 2020 Research and Development Plan focuses investment in experimental medicine to support these. And you know, the scary thought about all of this is the way everything is moving. We've talked about it ad nauseum, the whole vaccine debate, and ruining Johnny's Disney World vacation with measles is how this all got out into the public debate. But now it's come down to mandatory vaccinations, not only in California, but in New York State, and I'm sure other states, for children to attend school. And now mandatory vaccinations are coming for adults. The new bill that was up in front of the House, the Vaccinate All Children Act of 2015. Guys, don't forget the beginnings, the history of the biowarfare project. Remember, I looked at this, we read all about it. In 1972, Nixon declared, when he signed, I don't know, I think it was like the Nuremberg or one of those different agreements for us to all give up biological warfare, that our method to protect ourselves was going to be through vaccines. That's military. The fact that Biopharma produces the vaccines, don't think for a second that this doesn't also involve DARPA in other shadowy organizations within the federal government. Don't think that we aren't and haven't been guinea pigs. We looked at, I don't know what the number was, 236 different experiments that have been proven to not be conspiracies that they've done on the public without their knowledge. Alright guys, make sure you stick around. It is Friday night. Make sure you come back Saturday and Sunday as well. All kinds of new material and lots of stuff to learn. Everybody have an awesome weekend, and I will catch up with